Welcome to The Slash, where we talk about movies and other stuff. I'm Zero, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a movie that isn't horror, but one I feel deserves to have a formal review. Today I'm talking about Transformers: Rise of the Beast, released in June of 2023. Rise of the Beast is the seventh installment in the long-running and very convoluted Transformers franchise, serving as a standalone sequel to 2018's Bumblebee. It's also the first canon movie in the franchise to not be directed by Michael Bay. Instead, taking the reins this time around is Stephen Caple Jr., who's best known for directing 2018's Creed 2. With Michael Bay stepping down as director, instead serving as a producer, it's nice that this franchise could be given a fresh start with a new director, seeing as Michael Bay's last installments were heavily panned by critics and audiences alike. Would Rise of the Beast face that same reception despite being a fresh take on the franchise? Well, like its predecessors, Rise of the Beast wasn't received as positively as the OG 2007 movie, but unlike its predecessors, it was the first to not receive entirely negative reviews. I guess people wanted a film that actually tells a coherent story and isn't just senseless action. That's exactly what Rise of the Beast is, and despite not being as action-packed as its predecessors, it still really pays off as a solid Transformers entry in the end. Look, this is still not a perfect Transformers movie, the original isn't even, but in terms of attempting to surpass the Michael Bay sequels in quality, it does just that. Not only does it have a coherent plot, it also has solid humor scattered throughout, likable characters, and a solid amount of emotional weight. I felt sad multiple times when watching this movie, and y'all know I love when a movie can actually make me feel something that isn't dread just waiting for the credits to roll. First off, one of my favorite parts about this movie is the relationship between main character Noah Diaz and his brother Chris, played by Anthony Ramos and Dean Scott Vasquez respectively. The past sequels did not have characters with good chemistry, so it's really refreshing to see two brothers that actually love and care about each other. It's not just them though. While I don't think Noah and Elena had decent chemistry, I love the chemistry between Noah and the rest of the Autobots, especially Mirage, voiced by Pete Davidson. It was genuinely funny seeing Mirage's comedic banter play off of Noah's disbelief and confusion, and it's super heartwarming when they truly become friends. I also really loved how Chris slowly warmed up to Mirage and trusted him to protect his brother, despite not knowing who or even what he is. It goes to show how much Chris is willing to make sure his brother survives and how much he really cares about his brother. I also love their performances separately. Anthony Ramos as Noah is a kid who admittedly makes bad decisions in the beginning, but he has a good heart and is willing to do anything to save his universe. He makes these bad decisions to protect his family. Meanwhile, Dean Vasquez's Chris is likable and sympathetic, and while I think him having sickle cell anemia was completely unnecessary and it was a subplot that ended up going nowhere, it does a solid job at making you feel for the kid. Like I said, the plot is steady, and while the pacing isn't the best, I don't think this movie was nearly as complicated to understand as the others. In this one, Noah and his foe-turned-friend Elena Wallace, played by Dominique Fishback, have to help the Autobots retrieve the other half of an ancient artifact called the Transwarp Key, which is the only way the Autobots can get back to their home in Cybertron. A new threat called the Terracons seek to intercept it and destroy Earth. It's a simple and admittedly predictable plot, but it flows seamlessly and doesn't waste too much time trying to give certain plot points over exposition. It has a reasonable amount of action and actual story in its 2-hour and 7-minute long runtime, and while it doesn't have as much action as the others, I think there was plenty enough to drive the plot to the end of the movie, and it never felt unnecessary just to bring cheap entertainment. The action scenes are incredibly effective too. They deliver a similar directing style to Michael Bay's directing abilities, slow-mo and lots of explosions. Not a lot, but some. It also has an incredible location design and some impressive visual effects, which really make the action scenes feel impactful. The transformation scenes feel very fluid and smooth, and all of the miscellaneous effects during action scenes and build-up scenes look incredible. Major props to VFX artist Gary Brosnich, who actually received an Academy Award for his work on The Lone Ranger. I guess they picked the right man for the job. Not a lot of movies can do that, especially not Marvel movies. Now, like I said, this is not a perfect Transformers movie, and there are a few things that bother me about this movie. Not enough to taint my enjoyment, but enough to want to point out and give criticism to. This movie could end up being notorious for having a nonsensical ending, and I didn't believe it until I actually saw it. I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen the movie, but just know that it creates a possible collaboration between two franchises that would never in a million years work well together. Not to mention, it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and we're supposed to just deal with it and pretend it didn't even happen. It ruined an otherwise solid ending overall. The entire ending as a whole isn't a perfect ending, but it does what it needs to do to end the movie. I just really wish they would have done something different for a big revelation. It feels very forced just to create shock value and cheap excitement. This might feel nitpicky, but I don't entirely love how little risks were taken in this movie. This is the 7th movie in a long-running franchise with a cult following and a lot of diehard fans. I can't entirely say if the past movies took bigger risks than this one, but in a movie that's supposed to invoke a sense of excitement and nail-biting adrenaline, especially this far into the franchise, this movie definitely could have benefited from killing off legendary characters and, you know, making them stay killed off. I am glad the characters that died ended up not really being dead, especially because they're well-loved characters, but at the same time, I've said numerous times that I love when a movie can make me feel something, and while it originally did before the third act when everybody ended up eventually coming back, it sort of feels like the movie was just scared of getting negative backlash for this. You guys have millions of dollars, what are you worried about? It ultimately doesn't bother me too much though, because where the movie really, and I mean really shines, is introducing a new team of robots to root for. The Maximals are without a doubt one of the best parts of this movie, and getting to see what they actually transform to later in the movie is epic, because it builds up so much suspense when you're just waiting to see what they actually transform into. Every moment they're on screen is epic, and I love that they actually serve a purpose to the plot other than just being fresh metal scraps. I especially love the performance of Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal. It almost feels just as epic and powerful as Peter Cullen's performance as Optimus Prime, and that is a high bar to clear. So what are my overall thoughts on this new Transformers movie? Despite not being a huge fan of the Transformers franchise, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it serves as a solid entry into a new trilogy. I'm gonna go ahead and give this new Transformers movie a solid 8 out of 10. If you guys have stuck around this long, thank you for watching my review of a movie that's not a horror movie. I promise I'll get back to doing horror content soon. I've got some really cool stuff planned. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the new Transformers movie down below, and maybe we can start a discussion. Until the next one, my name is Zero, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.